Hey everybody, welcome to Let's Talk Esports. My name is Yeso, and today I want to talk about the ALGS Pro League Year 3 invites. This is my second run at this video, so to anybody who watched the first iteration that I released earlier today on July 21st, thanks. I wasn't happy with it. It was way too long, not as focused as I wanted it to be, so hopefully this version of the video will be much more concise, focused, and I hope that I can really kind of relay my main arguments here about kind of everything that's going on a lot better. Special shout out to Tech. Tech reached out to me on Twitter asking where the video had gone. He actually ended up watching the entire 37 minutes and really liked the video. So thanks so much, Tech. I hope this will be just a cleaner version of what you saw earlier today. Of course, what I'm really talking about here is, of course, as we get ready to see the Year 3 format for the ALGS Pro League, we have gotten, told the invited teams, right? Not an official announcement from EA or Respawn or the ALGS team, but players from the teams that have been invited have come out and said, hey, we've been invited to Pro League. So for reference, the teams that have been invited to Pro League, as far as we know so far, Team Liquid, Optic, TSM, NRG, Luminosity, Cloud9, 100 Thieves, Space Station, Furia, Elevate, Atlanta Premier, Sentinels, Unlucky, G2, G-Force, Renegades, Complexity, Tripods, and Torrent. So those are the teams that, at least at this moment, that I know of that have been invited to Pro League. Now, if you'll notice, those teams will correspond pretty directly to the teams that went and represented North America at playoffs, at, I should say, the ALGS Championship, and then the rest is filled out by the top finishers in LCQ2. And you may be wondering, well, LCQ2 was an event that was supposed to be a qualification for champs, and that is exactly what it was. But it has now also been turned into, those results have been turned into qualification for Pro League, and that is something that I'm going to talk about. So those are your invited teams. I do want to make clear here as well, right off the top, a few teams that I'm going to very specifically talk about in this video are one, Team Esports Arena /W. That is the same team. Of course, they've been signed as Team Esports Arena post year 2. XSET, and then Tripods, and I want to make it clear very specifically about Tripods that the premise of this video, the goal of this video, is not to be an indictment of Tripods, the work that they've done, the skill that they have, none of that whatsoever, nor is it to say that they do not deserve to be in Pro League. That is not my argument at all. My argument is very simply how the invites and qualification for year 3 of Pro League have been handled, because as I will lay out, I do believe that Tripods is not a team deserving of an invite. I think they can and likely should play in Pro League, but I believe they are a team that should play through a specifically set up qualification event for the next split of Pro League. So we'll lay that out as well. And very simply off the top, my 3 arguments here are very much going to be the resumes of the teams that I'm going to discuss, previous relegation or qualification iterations, with whether it's within Pro League or without, and then the communication or lack thereof from EA/Respawn/ the ALGS team. So let's start at the top with the resumes, and this is a pretty easy one. I've noted down the 3 teams that I've mentioned, their resumes here from year 2 of ALGS competition. So let's go from the top. We'll start with Team Esports Arena /W. If you go to the Liquipedia pages, they will be listed as W, but they have been signed. Here is Team Esports Arena's year 2. They started the year by being directly invited to Pro League for Split 1. They were the 14th overall team in ALGS points from the year prior. 20 teams were invited to the first split of Pro League based just off of their ALGS points accumulated over the previous year of competition. So they got invited. They were 14th of those 20 teams that got invited. They finished tied for 9th overall in Split 1 with C9. That is, of course, 9th of 40 teams. They finished ahead of, in that split, Renegades, Premier GG, that of course became Atlanta Premier, Furia, Team Liquid, Torrent, CLG, and Lazarus. They then went to the Split 1 playoffs. Of course, that was the domestic-only playoffs, so it was 20 NA teams competing in that. And they finished 10th overall in Split 1 playoffs. Respectable finish there. Tough competition. They then go into Split 2. They finish 13th overall. A little bit of a step down, but still right up in the mix with a lot of good teams. Still essentially in the top third of Pro League teams. They finished ahead of, notably, Complexity, Furia, Torrent, Lazarus, Renegades, Atlanta Premier, GeForce, Unlucky. And then they went to the LCQ2 to try and qualify for champs. Had a bit of a rougher showing there, finished 12th in LCQ2. So that was the entire year for Team Esports Arena. And I would say a pretty good year, right? That's tough competition. You're playing week in and week out against teams like Optic, TSM, NRG, Sentinels, and more. So that's a damn good year from Team Esports Arena /W. Now let's look at XSET, another team like ESA that didn't get an invite. They were invited, though, to Split 1 of Year 2. They were 12th overall in ALGS points, so they got an invite as well to the first split of Pro League. That first split, they finished tied for 11th overall. They were tied with PK. They notably finished ahead of Renegades, Premier, Furia, TL, Torrent, CLG, and Lazarus. They went into the Split 1 playoffs, had a rough showing in the Split 1 playoffs, 18th there. Not their best effort. But they come into the second split of Pro League, another solid showing. A little bit of a step down, similar to Team Esports Arena, but they still finished tied for 15th overall with Furia and Torrent. They finished ahead of, notably, Lazarus, GeForce, Unlucky, Renegades, Atlanta Premier. And then they went to LCQ2, and they finished 14th in LCQ2. Both of those, really solid resumes. Those are two teams that were very consistent throughout the entirety of Year 2, played really well. Those are very respectable, very good showings over the entire year of the ALGS. Now, let's talk about Tripods. Tripods, of course, you may know, Nick Merckx' team that competed in Challenger Circuit. They got an invite. Let's look at their year. They didn't compete at all in Challenger Circuit Split 1. Challenger Circuit Split 2, they finished 3rd overall. Hell of a showing, especially in their first split. In terms of the 4 different circuits in Challenger Circuit Split 2, they finished 23rd in their first, 20th in Circuit 2, 2nd in Circuit 3, and then finished in 5th in Circuit 4, giving them that 3rd overall placing. They then went on to compete in LCQ2 and finished 10th there. And that is how they got that spot in Pro League. Now compare all 3 of those resumes. There's one that is dwarfed by the other 2, and it's very clearly Tripods. And again, let me be clear. This is not me saying they're a bad team. This is not me saying that they don't deserve to play in Pro League. But this is me very specifically laying out that as you look at the invites for the first split of Pro League, which both XSET and W got, they were rewarded for the body of work in the previous year of the ALGS. It was overall ALGS points that earned those 20 team invites for the first split of Pro League, and rightfully so. They had done a great job over a wider breadth of time to secure a direct invite to Pro League. They said, hey, you did so good last year, you don't have to play in a qualification event. That is the way invites should work. Tripods, their body of work doesn't hold a candle, all due respect, to what ESA and XSET did. You know, a good showing, for sure. In Split 2, they should be a top contender to qualify, but they shouldn't get an invite. 3rd overall in Challenger Circuit is not better than 10th or 13th overall in Pro League. You're not playing against nearly the same competition. It is much tougher to compete week after week after week in Pro League. But Tripods got the invite. And I think that is a mistake because I think the invite should be handled over your body of work. The entirety of your year two should be weighed in for a direct invite to Pro League. And Tripods does not stack up against Esports Arena or XSET. Period. And this is one where maybe there's discussion on other arguments. There's not here. There's no argument. You are on copium if you think Tripod's resume matches up. So there's that. Okay. Let's go to my second argument. Let's talk about how relegation has worked before. So, relegation is not something new to esports or sports in general, right? Relegation has been around for a long time. They used to use it in, kind of early iterations of baseball in North America, in the United States. It is a staple in European soccer leagues in the way that traditionally works, and it's meant to keep competition fresh. If teams are kind of consistently at the bottom of the standings, or if they're just really bad, you want to get them out and get fresh teams, fresh talent into the pipeline. I think that makes a lot of sense. Now, the way that typically works, and I think a perfect example is a sister esports league in North America, the LCS. The LCS is the North American competitive circuit for League of Legends. And years ago, before they went to a franchising model, they had relegation as well. At the end of a split, the bottom two teams of 10 were up for relegation. They would have to compete to defend their spot in the LCS. It's actually how Cloud9, an org you may all very well know, that's how Cloud9 got started in League of Legends. They competed through the Challenger series, and they qualified and relegated a team and qualified for the LCS. But I want you to notice something. That's 2 of 10 teams, right? That's a small percentage, right? 20% is not necessarily small, but when you consider it overall, 1 or 2 teams being relegated or up for relegation, I think that makes a lot of sense. And here's the thing. The ALGS agrees because relegation exists already in the ALGS. If you look at the ALGS rules, and if you look back to Split 1, that's how it worked. At the end of the first split of Pro League, the bottom 8 teams were up to be relegated. And I'm going to pull up, just for me, I will read off of the ALGS rulebook in particular, the Split 2 Pro League qualifier. This tournament uses a double elimination format with a winner's bracket and a loser's bracket culminating in a finals round. Teams compete in a 6-match series in each round, earning points each match as described in Appendix C 5.1. The 12 teams with the highest total Challenger Circuit 1 points from Challenger Circuit Split 1, and the 8 teams with the lowest total placement points from Pro League regular season Split 1 start in the winner's bracket. The remaining teams who qualified from Challenger Circuit Split 1 start in the loser's bracket. Ultimately, when you jump down to finals, this is just kind of more description of how it'll run. Finals says the 8 teams with the highest round score qualify to participate in Pro League regular season Split 1. Makes a lot of sense. You've got 40 teams in Pro League. The bottom 8, they've got to defend their spot. Totally fine with that. It is less than 25% of the competing teams. I think that makes a lot of sense. That is traditionally how it works in European soccer leagues and elsewhere. Relegation is a small percentage of those teams, of the competitors that have to defend their spot. The rest have played well enough to protect themselves, to hold on to their slot. But the problem is that is not how it's been handled this time, because suddenly LCQ2 has been turned into a relegation event. Because all of a sudden you went from 8 teams having to protect their spot in Pro League to 32. Which is insane. 8 teams had already qualified to go to champs. You were looking to decide 2 more to go, but also you have 32, because every other Pro League team that hadn't already qualified to go to champs goes to the LCQ, whether it's an LCQ1 or LCQ2. And the thing about it is, when you look at the first set of relegations, 8 teams competed, there were also 8 spots to compete for in terms of the teams from Pro League. So theoretically, every team for Pro League could defend their spot and requalify. Now, if you do want to shrink the size of the league, I think it's fine to just automatically say, hey, there's going to be fewer spots this time around for relegation. I think it's fine, but it's absurd when you think of the fact that ultimately it came down to 32 Pro League teams were then competing for 12 invite slots. That's crazy. That doesn't make sense. You've gone from less than 25% getting relegated or up for relegation to 32. It's more than 75%. That's crazy. And that doesn't match with historical precedent. Doesn't make sense. So it doesn't match up there. Why are teams like Esports Arena and Xset, who had really good, really respectable years, competed well consistently all throughout the year in the ALGS, why do they have to defend their spot? That's crazy. They should be getting an invite. They're one of the best teams in Pro League. They were well established within the top half, even the top 25% of teams in Pro League all year. But they have to defend their spot. That doesn't make any sense. Now, the final argument comes down to communication or the lack thereof. And that's the big problem here, because the one thing that teams and players and the competitive community as a whole have come to learn over this entire thing is that LCQ2 was, in the LCQ, entire event was a qualification for Pro League. They didn't have any idea. Teams were competing under the assumption that it was for champs. And personally, I don't think Challenger Circuit teams should get to compete in a last chance qualifier to go to champs. Separate argument, but I that seems very silly to me. I don't think that if Tripods had one really good day there in LCQ2 and finished in the top 2, that they should have gotten to go to champs. But that's a separate argument. But LCQ2 was never set up as this qualification event for Pro League. Teams had no idea. And I could give you proof. Not only have I been unable to find anything online about announcements about how LCQ was going to work with mentioning it being a qualification event for the next split of Pro League, I could just show you the rules. I've got the rules here once again. Let's go to the bottom of page 12, where I have last chance qualifier 2. Teams are seeded by their finishing placements in the following events in descending order of priority: Split 2 playoffs, Pro League, regular season, Split 2, LCQ 1. It says 40 teams compete in 2 groups of 20 using the double elimination format described in Appendix C3. All teams start in the winner's bracket round 1. Each round will feature a 6-match series. The 2 teams with the highest round score earned in the final round per region qualify to the championship. And that is it. And that, in my opinion, covers everything you need to know about LCQ2. Format, who's going, how they're going to be seated, what it means. It doesn't say anything about qualification for the next bit of Pro League. That's not an LCQ2. And somebody can confirm that this wasn't communicated to teams because, and well done by Jake Lucky, who sat down with Minus Tempo, the manager of TSM Apex, asked him about it. So I'm going to play this clip, just the audio here, but let's see what Minus Tempo has to say.
Main issue being that they were never transparent enough to tell the public to say, hey, LCQ2 is going to be very important if you didn't make Split 2 playoffs or champs.
They didn't. It's not that they weren't transparent. They just never mentioned it at all. So once a team realized, hey, after these like first 4 games, I can't make it into the top 2, so I'm just gonna go grief and like play a random troll comp or something like that, and just have fun kind of thing, right? A lot of teams did that because they weren't told LCQ2 results will directly affect whether you get an invite or not, and that's where the problem occurred.
Yeah, that is where the problem occurred. Thank you to Jake and Minus Tempo for sitting down there, and I will make sure to link the tweet if you want to go check out Jake and more from him in his conversation with Minus Tempo. But yeah, teams had no idea. And why would you have hidden stakes for an event like that? So it seems very clear that LCQ2 was decided as some sort of qualification event for Pro League in the aftermath, which doesn't make any sense, right? I understand that there's not the traditional, when you look at like pre-year 2, ALGS points format where you're including accruing a certain amount of points based on your placements in different ALGS events to give this very clear number of like the top 20 teams in ALGS points like they had going into year 2 to qualify teams. So sure, like does it make a little bit more of a difficult conversation to decide what teams should get invited or not? Sure. But it would seem that it was just decided that LCQ2 for whatever reason would be that qualification event, and it doesn't make sense. And especially it is unacceptable when it isn't communicated to the teams and the players. Because one argument that's made, and I'll read a tweet here and I won't mention who it is from, but a reply specifically to that clip that Jake Lucky tweeted, in my opinion, I think if you are competing, you should be giving it your all for reasons like this. It sucks, but take it seriously. Trolling comp is stupid and it ruins the competitive experience. First of all, literally some of the best teams in the world, TSM, Optic, and more, would have probably done the same thing if they knew they couldn't qualify. If they go into an event and they know they have to finish top 2 to go to champs, and they are in a point in like the final 2 games and they know, hey, there's literally mathematically not a way we can qualify for champs, they're going to do that. Hell, these teams leave scrims all the time, and scrims are incredibly important. There's not like a qualification at stake, but that practice is important. And if a team's getting dumpstered in scrims, they'll leave all the time. Cash could be on the line, and teams will leave if they like, yeah, we can't finish in the cash. So, it just happens. You can dislike it. I think that's fine, but it happens. And teams shouldn't be punished for that if they weren't told, right? If you aren't told that you need to also try to make top 10 to get into Pro League, then why are you being punished for that? And ultimately, it's also weird to stack these two very different qualification metrics on a single event. Playing for top 2 and playing for top 10 can be very different things. Those can mean two very different play styles for teams. And ultimately, you should be just focusing on the biggest one, which is top 2. So I think that lack of communication is also incredibly unacceptable. And it's punishing teams that I think rightfully deserve to be invited to Pro League. Of course, the two poster childs of that argument, W/ESA and XSET. And unfortunately, tripods have gotten caught in the crossfire. But I think, to an extent, rightfully so. And it's not their fault. And it's not that they, again, do not deserve to play in Pro League or that they are not good enough to. But very simply, when you look at their resume, it doesn't stack up against these other teams. Period. When you look at how relegation has worked within and without of the ALGS before, the fact that 32 teams essentially had to fight in relegation after Split 2 doesn't make sense at all, and it doesn't match with historical precedent. And number 3, the severe lack of communication on EA's part, or Respawn, or ALGS, whoever is responsible for that LCQ2 is a qualification event for Pro League is unacceptable. And it's either they didn't communicate it, whatever, accidentally, intentionally, or what, or they made a decision afterwards to make that event a qualification event for Pro League. Either way, it's unacceptable. And it's a bummer, because ultimately, I and many others want ALGS competitive to be the best that it can be. And this kind of crap doesn't do that. It hurts the esport. And if your argument is, well, good teams will qualify, XSET and W will make it in anyway, like it's not that big of a deal, then why don't we throw out the invite system altogether? Those teams, like TSM, Optic, and more, earned an invite. Completely agree. They should not have to play through a qualification event. Esports Arena and XSET are the same. Tripods should have to play through a qualifying event. Nothing they have done stacks up to what these teams have done. and they should have to earn their spot, and they have not. Even if they finish top 10 in the LCQ2, they have not earned their spot in Pro League yet. And I think they are fully capable to do so. I would love to see them do it. I would love to see them compete in Pro League. And God knows, Nick Merckx playing in the ALGS Pro League is great for Pro League, and I'm all for that. I'm all for the extra viewership, the eyeballs, the hype, the storylines, incredible. But his team should have to earn their way in there, and with the way things have worked out, they have not. Plain and simple. And that's a bummer. That's it. To everybody who watched the video, if you guys have questions for me and my thoughts, if you have comments, your own takes, please leave them down in the description or hit me up on Twitter. I'm at Castrier, so it'll be linked down in the description. Thanks so much to everybody who watched through. Again, big shout out to everybody who tried to watch or did watch the first time around. I think this version of the video came out much, much, much better. I'm much happier with it. Way more focused, and I think I hit all the points that I really wanted to, so I appreciate that. Thank you for your support, everybody. Have a great rest of your night, and I will see you later. Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking it and subscribe for more esports content like this. If you want to keep tabs on everything that I'm working on, follow me on my socials. They're linked down in the description. And if you want to watch my latest video, it's linked on your screen right now. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.